Cohen's building, you looked for residential, you looked for retail, you looked for commercial, you looked for recreational. Other uses in addition to those, but each of those elements, I'm very happy to say, we found a way to put together in a development and bring to completion, we believe. Our development team is one that's very strong, it's very substantial. It's an assimilation of local investors, local financial people from the Peoria community. Core Construction, certainly one of the more respected general contractors and design build contractors in the market. Lehman Property Management, which people remember their predecessor company by name a little bit better, Mungie Property Management, so been in the property management side of apartments for decades. And then Gable Housing Group, which is essentially what I bring to the table, and my development history, I guess, goes back 20 plus years in East Peoria, and I promise not to bother you with anything that I've done. What is important is what we've learned about this building. When we first started looking at this building, we were surprised, quite frankly, with its massiveness. And I don't know any other word to use other than it's just massive. Those of you that have toured the building, you've seen 32-foot high ceilings. You've seen, 12-foot-inch thick walls. You've seen the lack of windows in the whole thing. And like most folks probably over the last decade since this building started going into basically underutilization, so what can happen there? Well, the reality of it is we think it can be the cornerstone of one of the most exciting residential mixed-use communities, not that Peoria Heights has ever seen, and not that the Peoria area has ever seen, but that basically the state of Illinois has ever seen. What we're proposing is 124 very high-quality apartments, over 60,000 square feet of retail and commercial development, recreational amenities that would be open to the public on a fee basis, as well as the residents there in the building, including an indoor swimming pool, health club facilities, and more. We also, because of the proximity to the new extension of the Rock Island Trail, we view this as an ideal location for a future trailhead. So we integrate that right into our building. We think, as we think about walking the Rock Island Trail or biking the trail, we want people to be able to rent bicycles right there from our building. We want people to use our building as the restroom stop when they're making that trek down the trail. We want people to be able to come in, air up their tires, get a soft drink, whatever it might be. Again, right here along the trail. And each of those are important amenities. In developing this, we've assembled, again, a good team. We've looked really hard at the budget. I'll be honest, the project is costing a lot more than we wanted it to. Basically, again, it goes back to that massiveness issue. It goes back to the fact that if we were dealing with a traditional warehouse, like what you might see in Peoria's warehouse district, some of the buildings down there. If you look at some of those, you'll see windows already cut in. Well, unfortunately, we have to cut in every window. We have to cut through that concrete. We have to put in steel reinforcements. It just makes for a more complex project, but in our opinion, a more exciting project. We think that it will absolutely feed the other businesses in the Heights. We're very comfortable to make that statement. You don't create a 3 to 4% growth in the Heights population because we're projecting 240 new residents. You don't create that type of new resident without those people spending money. And they're going to spend money in existing businesses, existing pharmacy, existing grocery store, existing restaurants. So everybody hopefully, benefits from this project. I think as we really try to focus in on where we've been in our due diligence stage, it's been about trying to grasp exactly what can we build, and I've had conversations with many of you over several months, and you've heard me say, we're at 112 apartments or 126 or 128. I mean, it just has varied depending upon exactly where we cut walls and where we don't cut walls, but we're real comfortable at this point to say 124 apartments in excess of 60,000 square feet of retail and commercial. Part of what we purchase involves roughly 2 acres across Marietta Street. So we're really looking at a project that we're terming the Shops in the Heights, because we don't see our retail focus stopping in the Cohen's building per se. We see it going across Marietta with new construction from ground up so that we create Marietta as a new retail commercial corridor. Its proximity to Prospect obviously is one of the driving things making this project so desirable. What you as a village have created with Prospect Avenue, you know, living here, you see it every day. Being from where I'm from, I hear about it regularly. I hear about communities saying, we want this development to be like Prospect. And it is virtually impossible for any other community to ever emulate what you have on Prospect. You know, I was involved in another new development that recently opened in the central Illinois area. It has a lot of new retail, has a lot of new restaurants. And I think most people think that looks very chain-oriented. You have something different in the Heights. You have something more intimate. You have something more cozy. The residents that we bring into this project are going to want to walk and be part of that. They're going to want to, you know, experience what all of you get to experience on a regular basis. In looking at how we accomplish this, I mean, quite honestly, we accomplish this through a public-private partnership. And our investors are certainly, you know, prepared to move forward. We've been working with our lender to move forward. We're thankful that it's in the TIF district, and that certainly puts certain tools in place. And what we'd like to do is propose a development agreement, you know, with the village, one that would allow us to close on the purchase of this building yet this calendar year. To be real precise on some time frames, our option expires on September 21st. Now, that doesn't mean we have until September 21st to tell them we're in or we're out, because there's some time frames associated that we even have to give them a little advance notice to that. But drop dead for us is in this month. If we tell them we're going ahead, we have 90 days to close on the purchase, which means we would be closing on the purchase prior to December 21st. We're estimating a 10-month construction schedule for the build-outs. So that really means by middle of fourth quarter 2014, we should have people living there. Now that's an aggressive time frame. I mean, that's a lot of work, but you know, that's what they're telling me, and on the construction side. So we're optimistic. Certainly, you know, retailers. We've been talking to a lot of retailers. We think there is a core group that wants to be in the Heights. Some are existing businesses that want a new location, and certainly some are transplants into the Heights. And we're working very aggressively to be bringing that along simultaneous with the residential, because it's very important to us that the folks living in the building have the amenities of the residential right there with them. We're trying to create a mixed use. We're not trying to create an apartment complex. We're not trying to create a retail strip. We're trying to create a mixed use community. And we have to kind of try and lift all of those parts at once. So I have some visuals. I mean, it's not, you know, again, just to kind of walk through a couple of the comments. Basically, as you know, back in December of 2007, you know, you had an initial development agreement that you approved with Tom Tincher and Associates. Actually, I have a copy of it here. A number of the things that development envisioned are also incorporated in ours. Now, we don't go quite as far as they did with some of the not-for-profit elements and things like that. To be perfectly honest, I mean, this was pushing, probably in today's dollars, this would be pushing an $80 million plus project. We're closer to a $23 million project, plus whatever we do on the other side of Marietta Street. So we're a little bit more controlled. But as we kind of walk through, you know, and I'll leave this so any of you can thumb through this, or I'd be happy to email you hard copies. The building as it currently stands is 127,000 square feet. When we're done, it gets closer to about 330,000 square feet. So we don't grow the building, we insert demising floors within the building, taking advantage of that 32-foot ceiling height. As we continue along, though, these apartments, the most typical apartment, and of the 124 apartments, 86 of them are essentially the same footprint. That is an 1,100 square foot apartment, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. There's a floor plan on here of that apartment. For example, the master bedroom, 12 foot by 15.2. I mean, that's a good, solid bedroom. Living room, kitchen combo with the great room, with the great room portion being 17 feet. By way of comparison of other apartment complexes in the Peoria market, we're going to be larger than most of them in terms of footprint. That's important to us. Why? And a simple question would be, well, if you make them smaller, does that cut cost? Really, we're taking advantage of the massiveness of the building. It really has nothing to do with actually setting out to say, how do we be 20 square feet or 50 or 100 square feet larger than somebody else? The reality of it is the building's so wide, it's kind of easy for us to make our units a little bit bigger by simply taking advantage of the volume of depth that we already have. The positive side is it makes it more attractive. So it makes us more comfortable that people are going to want to live here. Something as minor sounding as the ceiling height. Now, we're going to have variation depending on floors, but our typical floor has a 9 foot 4 inch ceiling height. Again, very nice feel. Something you typically wouldn't see in one of the new construction projects. Why are we doing it that height? Again, because of the massiveness of the building. That's kind of how the cards fall. But it gives us a great project. Our retailers, one of the retailers that we're dealing most intensely with right now, that particular space is about 15,000 square feet. Within their 15,000 feet, they're going to have ceiling heights from 18 feet to 13 feet to 9 feet 4. So again, lots of undulation, lots of character in their retail area. We've got, as the plan shows, a major corridor that dissects the building. And that corridor is what would lead people into the trailhead location for the restrooms or the amenities for the trail. That ceiling height is full height. It's 32 feet tall. So again, we're going to have something unique. We're going to have something very special. And I honestly think anything short of doing something very special doesn't do justice for what you have on Prospect. Because what we want to do is create the other end of the bookend. You've got one great bookend on Prospect. If we create another great bookend, then we create a lot of synergy for more things to happen. Otherwise, you'll continue to have a wonderful three block stretch, but I think we can help do more. I think we can help bring more to the table. So that's what we're here tonight to talk about. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer questions or.
Okay.
I have a few.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I have a few. First of all, can you just tell us your background, just so the people at home know your accomplishments that you've had?
How about if I tell you my background and somebody else can decide if it's an accomplishment?
Well, it is an accomplishment, but
thank you.
can do that. That way
No,
the people at home
no,
know that you're what you've touched.
Sure,
because-
I'd be happy to.
What?
Born and raised in East Peoria. After graduating from East Peoria High School, went to Illinois State for my undergraduate, got my master's from Northern Illinois. My concentration is in public finance. I'm actually trained to be a city manager. As I was completing my master's, I was going to marry a girl from East Peoria, so we decided to, I needed to move back home. Went to work actually for the Heart of Illinois United Way. Spent a better part of 10 years there, helping run the campaign and things like that. Went on the East Peoria City Council in '87 when I was about 23, served one term on the council. In '91, I was elected mayor of East Peoria, served 2 terms as mayor, 91 to 99. My wife always told me I could run the city, but she'd run the house. And then after we had our 3rd child, she said she's running the house. I had to quit being mayor and go get a real job. So I say that jokingly, but there's a lot of truth to that statement. So I loved being mayor, but the reality of it is I was never wanting to be a career politician. I then went to work for Cullinan Property. Well, I should say when I was mayor, we obviously did a lot of developments. As mayor, we did East Side Center, which probably a lot of you have been over to that recreation complex, Eastport Marina. We kick-started the Riverside Center project where Walmart and Lowe's are. We did the Paradise Hotel, the entire Paradise Landing project, Altor for machinery, probably a handful of others I don't recall. Then went to work for Cullinan Properties. Ultimately became the president and chief operating officer of Cullinan. Served in that capacity, involved in projects such as the shops at Grand Prairie, and that was one of my lead projects. Worked on projects with Diane and the team, and I love them all dearly. In the St. Louis market, we did East Court Village in Pekin, shops at College Hills in Normal. Grand Prairie Apartments was one of the last ones that we were working on. I resigned from Cullinan in August of 2010 because I wanted to start my own small, boutique development firm. Wanted to stay a little closer to home. Those three kids that made me quit mayor were now all in high school, and I wanted to be close to them during their high school years. So, formed my own development firm, and that brings me here tonight.
Cool. Thank you for that. My second is, when you said that the 10 months, 10 months construction, the middle of fourth quarter 2014, people will actually be able to live there. But what about the rest of the project? Is the retail going to be ready to go too? Or?
The answer, we'll be ready to go, absolutely. Do we expect to have retailers in there? Absolutely. I don't, until we have signed leases, I can't tell you the exact time frame for a retailer, but we are building that space simultaneously.
Okay, so it's just not going to be apartments and then the retail you'll do after?
No, not at all. It's actually, for the living experience, it's really important to us to try to do them simultaneously. We're going to be building them simultaneously. The fire suppression system has to be done simultaneously. The trail, will be done, so we'll want to have that trailhead open. The three primary retailers that we're talking to each have a horizon of needing to relocate. One can go anytime. The other two would be between 11 of 14 and November of 2014 or February of 2015.
Okay.
So that's the time frame of the major retailers we're talking to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at all for Jeff?
I have a couple questions, if that's okay, if we've got time.
No, please.
So I think we all agree that this is a fantastic project. Obviously, it's very exciting, has a lot of potential for the village. The only thing that concerns me is the sticker price, and we haven't actually discussed that tonight. So are we going to talk about that, or has the figure that has been tossed around, the $8.5 million, is that remain constant?
Yeah, that, what we're looking at right now is a roughly $23 million project. I mean, it's got a few $100,000, above that. We'll be asking the village to consider an $8.5 million bond issue that would be retired primarily from the property taxes generated by the site and other incremental revenues, some of them being population-based revenues. As these as you get new residents, you get new revenue, you get revenues off of those new residents. Some of it being driven by the sales tax, but really because it's in a TIF, you have right now roughly 17 years, maybe 18 years left on your TIF. So we're only counting a 15-year period for the property tax increment to exist. So, in doing that, it makes for a little tighter amortization than maybe one would typically do.
So I guess what concerns me about that, though, is that because a significant percentage of the bond debt service obligation will come from sales tax, that opens us up to kind of significant risk, I would think. Particularly with, and we don't have to get into the specifics tonight, although I would like to at some point, in terms of your sales tax projections. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so how did you figure the number that you got to?
Sure. I mean, in some cases, our sales tax projections either come from knowledge that we have of particular users that we're talking to,
Okay.
and what their historical sales have been and what they would forecast them to be. So it comes from direct knowledge of the users, or based upon the size of square footages that we're dealing with, some historical information that we know as developers. Some spaces we're not forecasting, for example, any retail sales tax. And so if we get some, it's 100% better than we projected. Other cases, you're going to see we're projecting a lower volume.
So if you could just
Sure.
to help me out here, you have it looks like to me a sum of $12 million in new sales tax for that property. What would be an example of a space that would do, $2.75 million worth of sales tax, or what would be an example of a space that would do $300,000 worth of
Sure, let's take
sales, something like that?
for easy math, let's take a 15,000 square foot space.
Okay.
15,000 square foot space, doing $200 a square foot in sales would be a $3 million sales tax generator.
Can you give me a local example, just so I can wrap my head around that?
Yeah, I'm trying to give you one that isn't real bad. A dollar store
Okay.
would be doing about $140 a square foot. If you went out to Gordman's out at Grand Prairie, somebody like that's probably doing about $250 to $275.
Okay.
You get a Walmart, the number is going to be lower because they're so massive. Walmart might be $80, $85 a square foot,
Okay.
depending upon the size of the Walmart. Now, let's take a restaurant. You could take a 2,000 square foot restaurant that is doing, $5 million in sales, and they're going to be, $250 a foot. So it's the International Conference of Shopping Centers, which is kind of the industry of retail. They have some pretty good guidelines,
Okay.
but most of this, we just know who we're talking to.
And a couple of questions about your projections as well. You have included on there from the very beginning that the Marietta anchors will be in place. But as I understood it from our previous meeting, those are going to be completed only after the Cohen's development.
You talking about across the street?
Yeah.
No,
Are those?
well, we're not going to get them built in 10 months. I mean, to be honest, by the time we lease, and
So it's not a concurrent development?
it's concurrent leasing, it's concurrent, it's not staged. We're not saying by any means that we are going to work on the Cohen's building, and after the Cohen's building's done, then we're going to go across Marietta. We're already talking to people across Marietta.
Okay.
And, one of the buildings is a multi-tenant building of about 10,000 square feet. We get to a 50% commitment on that building, we go into design and construction. So could we be under construction with that building in April, a 5-month construction schedule, and it open in November? Yeah, we could. I didn't project that in my numbers. I projected some staging.
Oh, I don't see that being accounted for. It seems like they're all in there from the beginning. At least the most recent numbers that I had.
I don't believe so. I thought,
I don't have it in front of me.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't bring
It
anything.
seemed like it
No,
counted.
I think there's a column with some percentage build-outs.
Okay. Well, it seemed like
Yeah,
you had the property tax and sales tax for the Marietta property.
not from day one, I don't believe.
Okay.
But I don't want to,
I don't have the one with the debt service on there, but that probably had the retail and property tax.
yeah,
phased
the
in
one
over
with the
time.
debt service has, I think I started like at
Not
30, 50, 70, 90. I think I have like a 4-year
Right.
period.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any concern that you're double counting any of these numbers for retailers that are already located in the Heights?
None that I believe would be in the Heights if the development doesn't happen.
That's perhaps a dishonest answer, correct? I mean, how can you say that, how can you that not be double counting?
Well,
If it's in the Heights now, and you're projecting that it'll be in the Heights once this development continues or goes at percent.
but in the case of a particular retail we're discussing, there's a high likelihood they will not stay in the Heights.
Okay, but it shouldn't be counted as new sales tax revenue, right?
It is new to this project, and it's,
Okay.
it's new to this project.
Right, but it's not new to the Heights.
It is not new to the Heights, but if this project doesn't happen, from what we've been told, that retailer will vacate. So I guess this is the way I looked at it, Matt,
Yeah.
is either way, your general fund's going to lose that amount of money. I guess so there, nothing dishonest. I mean, it's just a real blunt way to say it. Your general fund's probably going to lose that retailer's sales tax.
Okay. That's, I guess that's fair.
I'm not going to be dishonest about anything. I mean, that's how we looked at it. It's a loss to the general fund either way.
It's a potential loss.
Potential loss.
Yeah.
Very, very fair, because obviously I don't want them to leave, you don't want them to leave.
Right.
Now, the nice thing is that space should be backfilled, hopefully gets backfilled by another retailer. The whole issue of shift in retailing is a great point. It's a great point. No community that does significant retail development doesn't think about shift. When East Peoria, and I was involved in that project, some was working on Target, lots of conversation. How much of that is shift from Walmart? Gordman's, how much of that is shift from Kohl's? So you do go through that, and it's a very fair question, and it will occur. But to be fair, the next thing you have to ask in that shift is it a temporary shift or is it a long-term shift? And in the case of an actual vacancy occurring, what is the backfill that might occur? And how much of that shift does that backfill absorb?
I guess sort of the concern that I'm getting at is that, according to my numbers, just kind of messing with your Excel sheet, basically, a significant percentage of our debt service obligation is coming from sales tax. I estimate anywhere between 40 to 60%, depending on the year, and depending on the amount of revenue that we receive from that property.
I don't know that I see it being that high.
One of the things we talked about, Matt, I know, Jeff, the performer you gave us, you didn't contemplate any sort of a backloaded debt service. I mean, everything you had was kind of principal and interest, and like you typically would. But in a lot of cases, and I spoke with other communities, East Peoria being one, always give themselves a lot of wiggle room in the first 4 or 5 years, where it's a lot of a lot of interest and lesser amounts of principal, because you have your increasing real estate taxes on the back end, which can compensate for kind of shorting yourself on the front end and paying less principal. So that didn't show it. What you gave us and what I distributed to them didn't have those equations in it, because we hadn't really worked through it. But that would be how I proposed the debt service to be scheduled in this case as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think over the life of the bond, not taking any individual year in perspective, but over the life of the bond, I think we're north of 80% of the debt service being from property taxes or other revenues other than sales tax. I think it's north of 80 over the life of the bond.
Yeah, over the life of the bond, I think you're correct about that, but making a $300,000 debt payment out of our operating budget becomes significant.
Totally, and that's why I would agree with Matt. In terms of your bond structure, I'm not your bond counsel. I didn't try to structure what your bond is. I did talk to the president of the largest locally owned bank that has a lot of branches and more every week, it seems, last week, and we had the very specific question. And I asked him, and he said, typically there's some backloading, there's a lot of negotiation. He knows that Mr. Tibbs, is involved. He said Mike knows how to do it.
Is there any way that we can sort of figure that out before we would vote on it? I mean, in terms